Hello and welcome to English Plus Podcast, your deep dive into the language that shapes our world and the world that shapes our language. This week, we're not just observing the world, we're trying to make sense of a seismic shift that is already well underway. We're dedicating all our content this week, both here on the podcast and on our website, to a single monumental theme, and this theme is living in the age of AI. Are you listening to this right now on a device that you talk to? Perhaps you've asked a digital assistant to play a song, set a reminder, or tell you a joke. Maybe you've seen a picture online that looked so real you had to do a double take. Or you've used a chatbot to help you write an email. If you have, you've already had a close encounter with artificial intelligence. For many, AI has gone from a science fiction pipe dream to a mundane part of daily life with a speed that is truly breathtaking. It's no longer a futuristic concept. It is an active and accelerating force transforming everything from the way we work to the way we learn, create, and even think. The ubiquity of this technology means we are not standing on the precipice of a new era. We are already knee-deep in it. This isn't a slow, creeping change. It is a rapid, all-encompassing metamorphosis of our society, our economy, and even our most fundamental notions of what it means to be human. But this ubiquitous integration raises some truly profound and, frankly, burning questions. Is this a new dawn for humanity? A technological renaissance that will unlock unprecedented potential? Or is it a Pandora's box of unintended consequences we are just beginning to open? Is the rapid march of automation an engine for prosperity, or a relentless tide of job displacement that will leave millions behind? Do the fantastical fears of a Skynet-style sentient takeover obscure the more immediate and far more insidious challenges we face today, such as algorithmic bias, deepfakes, and the concentration of power in the hands of a few? We must also ask, in a world where machines can now generate prose, art, and music, what is the value of human creativity, human thought, and human ingenuity? What becomes of the struggle, the pain, and the joy of creation when perfection is a prompt away? How do we, as individuals and as a society, future-proof ourselves against a future that seems to be unfolding before our very eyes at an impossible pace? And how do we ensure this revolution benefits all of humanity, not just a select few? My friends, these are not trivial questions. They are the very essence of the conversation we must have. And while we will do our best to lay a comprehensive foundation for understanding this epochal moment, remember that this is just the beginning. The answers to these questions are not a shortcut. They are a destination that requires a continued journey of research, reading, and critical thinking. So consider this episode an invitation, a starting point to your own deeper exploration of the greatest technological phenomenon of our time. So settle in, because we're about to venture into the age of AI, and we have a lot to unpack. But before we start, let me just tell you about the things we're going to cover this week. Let me start with the podcast itself. But today is this deep dive into the idea of living in the age of AI, the theme for this week. But we're going to talk about other things. Tomorrow in our educational stories, we're going to talk about the AI dilemma, which is a story that we're going to enjoy and then we're going to learn from. And then in our skills and challenges on Wednesday, we're going to talk about English skills and learning in the age of AI. And on Thursday, I'll have to admit that we're going to take a break from AI and we're going to have our story of the week, which has nothing to do with AI. This story is Whispers of the Forgotten Forest, in which we're going to talk about the story and we're going to take a deep dive after the story. Well, of course, this is an original story that I wrote myself, and I'm going to present it to you with music that I wrote specifically for the story. And we're going to finish the week on the podcast with our digest episode where we're going to talk about everything we talked about this week. And I'm going to tell you about what we're going to talk about next week. I'm going to answer some questions and a lot of other things. So make sure you listen to this episode as well. But this is just what we're going to do on the podcast. On our website, we're also going to dedicate our English Plus magazine to this theme, living in the age of AI. And we're going to publish 5 very important articles this week, starting from today all the way till Friday. And for those of you who don't know about our English Plus magazine on EnglishPlusPodcast.com, In the magazine, we have the article, then we have the focus on language, where we dissect some of the most important vocabulary used in the article. Then we have our speaking challenge. Then we have our writing challenge with some grammar. Then we have discussion questions. And by the way, we also have Learn from AI section, so I ask AI about input about the topic. And we finish the article with some activities, and most importantly with the interactive vocabulary learning that I use on Quizlet and I embed on the website. So make sure you check on these. Let me just tell you about the topics of these 5 episodes. We're going to talk first about the human in the loop, reclaiming our role in an automated world. Our second article is about the algorithmic bias, unmasking the flaws in our digital mirrors. And then we're gonna have another article about the future of human work, beyond repetitive tasks and into a world of purpose. On Thursday, we're gonna have the new art of communication, from grammar to prompt engineering. And we're gonna finish on Friday with the epistemic crisis, navigating a world where seeing isn't believing. These are all 5 very important topics. And I almost forgot, there's also the audio article, so you can read or you can listen while you're reading if you want. And then there's this Mac Talk, where it is a discussion about the topic. All of these are very important, not only to take your knowledge, but also your English to the next level. But that's not everything. Our learning quizzes for this week are all going to focus on living in the age of AI as well, our theme for this week. We're gonna have learning quizzes about AI fact versus fiction, vocabulary challenge, the English of the AI revolution, the new English mindset, are you a master pilot of AI? In one of the quizzes, we're gonna learn about ethical frameworks, a test of your AI conscience, and we're gonna finish with a learning quiz about future-proofing your career, skills for the age of AI. Now, there's a lot more on the website that is not exactly related to AI, and you can check out these things. I just told you about the things that I'm going to include this week on the website and, of course, on the podcast that are related to our theme, living in the age of AI. And let me just add one more thing before we start with our topic for today, and this is about the learning quizzes. Now, you might say learning quizzes. Yeah, you're just adding this word to make it sound a little better, right? No, but it's actually a learning quiz. It's not just a quiz, because I've added tips for every single choice and a feedback as well. So when you take the quiz, it's not just about getting it right or wrong. You're going to learn no matter which option you choose. So it's not just about right and wrong. You're going to learn no matter what. So I really encourage you to go there and try one of these quizzes this week. And of course, just this one last thing before we start with our episode for today. You know that some parts of our episodes are premium and other parts are free. So if you just enjoy listening to the free content that I post on English Plus Podcast, I promise you that there's a lot of content there, a lot of beneficial content. But if you want to take it a step further, you can do that by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or on Patreon. And by doing this, you will not only be taking your English and knowledge to the next level, but you'll be supporting my efforts to keep creating these things. And by doing that, you're not just benefiting yourself, you're benefiting everyone who's listening to this podcast. So if you can, consider subscribing on Apple Podcasts, on Patreon. You can find the links in the description of the episode. Now, without further ado, let's talk about living in the age of AI. Welcome back, my friends. I'm so glad you're here for this, our flagship episode for the week, focusing on living in the age of AI. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the ethics and the economic shifts, let's get our bearings. Let's try to define this thing we're talking about. You know, for something so monumental, so ubiquitous, a lot of people don't really have a firm grasp of what AI actually is. Most people think of AI as something out of a blockbuster movie. A gleaming humanoid robot, a supercomputer with a sinister, monotone voice, or a disembodied intelligence with an agenda of its own. We've been conditioned by decades of science fiction to imagine AI as something utterly alien, something that is a distinct other. It's an easy trope to fall back on, and frankly, it sells movie tickets. But it dramatically oversimplifies the reality, and in doing so, distracts us from the truly important conversations. But the reality is, and this is where it can get a little less sensational and a little more profound, AI is already deeply woven into the fabric of our lives. It's the algorithm that recommends the next song you might like on your music streaming service. The streaming service that uses AI to predict which show you're most likely to binge watch next. It's the smart camera on your phone that automatically adjusts settings to make your picture look just right. It's the little box on a website that answers your customer service questions, and it's the system that helps your doctor sift through millions of medical images to spot a subtle anomaly. AI, at its most fundamental, is not magic. It's a field of computer science dedicated to creating systems that can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as recognizing patterns, making decisions, solving problems, and understanding language. It is, to put simply, a tool. But like all great tools, its potential is limited only by the imagination and, yes, the ethics of the person wielding it. To be more specific, most of the AI we interact with today is what's known as narrow AI. Think of it as a specialist with a single laser-like focus. A narrow AI is designed to do one thing and do it exceptionally well. The AI that plays chess is brilliant at chess, but couldn't tell you how to bake a cake. The AI that recommends songs is great at that, but it can't drive a car. This is a crucial distinction, because the fantastical fears we hear about the malevolent AI takeover are predicted on the concept of artificial general intelligence, or AGI, an AI that would have the cognitive abilities of a human and could perform any intellectual task we could. We are not there yet. Not by a long shot, by the way, no matter what people tell you. The difference between narrow AI and AGI is the difference between a bicycle and a starship. We have a lot of very good bicycles, and the starship is still just a blueprint in a lab somewhere. The shift we're witnessing today is unlike anything we've seen before, not because it's happening in a vacuum, but because of its sheer velocity and its pervasive nature. The Industrial Revolution, for all its world-altering power, unfolded over centuries. The information age sparked by the internet and personal computers reshaped society in decades. This AI revolution feels like it's happening in years, and the impacts are being felt not just in a few industries, but across every single facet of human endeavor. It's a truly unprecedented moment in history. As a society, we're still trying to absorb the implications of the smartphone, and now we're being asked to grapple with a technology that is just as, if not more, transformative. It's a bit like trying to read a map while the landscape beneath your feet is moving at 100 miles per hour. It's disorienting, and it makes it difficult to have a calm, reasoned conversation about where we're going. So let's get down to business and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of this monumental paradigm shift. Let's begin with the good, because there is so much to be optimistic about. It's so easy to get mired in a sense of foreboding, but to do so would be to overlook some of the most extraordinary and, frankly, life-saving applications of this technology. One of the most compelling is in the field of medicine. AI is not just helping doctors, it's giving them a superpower. Imagine a doctor having access to a system that has analyzed every medical journal, every clinical trial, every patient record ever created. AI can sift through this incomprehensible mountain of data in seconds, identifying complex patterns and correlations that no human mind, no matter how brilliant, could ever hope to see. This is leading to revolutionary breakthroughs in personalized medicine, where treatments are tailored not to the average patient, but to the specific genetic makeup and biological markers of an individual. We're seeing AI being used to accelerate drug discovery, to create more accurate diagnostic tools for diseases like cancer, and to even help predict epidemics before they even start. The potential to extend and improve human life is simply staggering. For example, AI algorithms can analyze microscopic images of a tumor and, with a level of precision that can exceed a human pathologist, identify the specific type of cancer and even predict its response to certain therapies. It's also being used in the operating room, where AI-powered surgical robots can assist with a level of dexterity and precision that is almost unbelievable, minimizing invasiveness and speeding up recovery times. Now, beyond medicine, AI is a catalyst for efficiency and productivity. Consider the mundane, repetitive tasks that consume so much of our time. Data entry, administrative scheduling, organizing files. These are tasks that, while necessary, don't necessarily require human creativity or deep thought. AI can automate these processes with incredible accuracy and speed, freeing up people to focus on the things that truly matter: creative problem solving, building relationships, and innovating. Think of a financial analyst who no longer has to spend days creating complex spreadsheets and models. Instead, an AI can do it in minutes, allowing the analyst to focus on interpreting the results, on building client relationships, on strategizing for the client's long-term financial health. The job shifts from being about execution to being about interpretation and collaboration. This isn't about making us obsolete, absolutely not. It's about liberating us from the drudgery so we can be more human. Now, the list of good things goes on and on. AI is helping us tackle climate change by optimizing energy grids and predicting weather patterns, allowing us to use renewable energy sources more effectively and anticipate natural disasters with greater accuracy. In material science, AI is being used to design new sustainable materials, from more efficient solar cells to new biodegradable plastics at a speed that would be impossible with traditional trial and error methods. In our quest to explore the cosmos, AI is a crucial partner. It's helping us analyze the immense volume of data from telescopes to spot distant exoplanets and to optimize the trajectories of spacecraft, ensuring missions are as fuel efficient and safe as possible. This is the promise of AI. A world where we can offload the tedious, the difficult, and the complex to a machine so that we can focus on what we as species are truly good at. Whether that's dreaming up a new artistic masterpiece, negotiating a peace treaty, or simply having a meaningful conversation with a friend. But as with every revolutionary technology, there is a dark side. Now let's talk about the bad, because this is where the conversation needs to become grounded in the present. The most immediate concern for most people is job displacement. And it is a valid concern, I have to admit. The narrative that AI will simply eliminate jobs is a simplistic one. But the reality is that many jobs will be fundamentally transformed and some will be made entirely obsolete. Think of the jobs that are process-oriented, where the steps can be codified and repeated. A good example is a financial analyst who spends their time creating complex spreadsheets and models. An AI can now perform those calculations with incredible speed and accuracy. The analyst's job doesn't disappear, but it evolves. They no longer spend their time on data entry and number crunching. They spend it on interpreting the results, on building client relationships, on strategizing. The job shifts from being about execution to being about interpretation and collaboration. This phenomenon is often described as the hollowing out of the middle class, where routine, middle-skill jobs are replaced by AI, while both high-skill and low-skill jobs remain. The high-skill jobs are those that require human ingenuity and critical thinking, while the low-skill jobs, like a barista or a janitor, require physical dexterity and social interaction that are difficult for current AI to replicate. The challenge is not just that people will lose their jobs, but that they will be forced to transition into an economy that values skills they may not have. The economic consequences of this could be immense, leading to a widening of the wealth gap and social instability if we don't proactively address it. Another serious issue is algorithmic bias. Well, this is a subtle but deeply concerning problem. AI systems are not neutral. They are reflections of the data they are trained on. And if that data is biased, the AI will learn and perpetuate that bias. Imagine a hiring algorithm that is trained on a company's historical hiring data. If that data shows that over the past 50 years, the company has predominantly hired men for leadership roles, the AI will learn to associate leader with male and will systematically disadvantage female candidates. It's a feedback loop of prejudice, but it's hidden behind a veil of mathematical objectivity. The same can be said for AI used in criminal justice, where a flawed dataset could lead to biased sentencing recommendations, or in facial recognition, where algorithms trained on predominantly white faces are significantly less accurate at identifying people of color. The flaw isn't in the code. It's in the mirror the code holds up to our society. And by the way, this is not a theoretical problem. It is happening right now, and it is a fundamental challenge we must confront. And then there's the problem of misinformation. Now, we've already seen how social media can be a breeding ground for disinformation. But AI takes this to a whole new level. AI-generated text, images, and now, with deepfake technology, even audio and video can be created with a level of realism that makes it almost impossible to discern from reality. We are entering an era where seeing is no longer believing. The very foundation of our shared reality, the ability to trust what we see and hear, is at risk of being eroded. This has profound implications for politics, for journalism, and for our ability to have a cohesive, functioning society. The potential for a single person to create a completely fabricated narrative and spread it instantaneously to millions is no longer the stuff of fiction. It's a very real and present danger. We are in an epistemic crisis, a crisis of knowing. How do we make informed decisions if we can't trust the information on which those decisions are based? And you might think that we talked about the ugly, but not yet. That's just the bad. Now let's talk about the ugly. This is the stuff of headlines or immediate daily problems. This is the deeper systemic and philosophical fallout that we're only beginning to grapple with. The ugly truth is that the development of AI is consolidating power in an unprecedented way. The sheer amount of data, computational power, and talent required to build and train large-scale AI model means that this technology is largely in the hands of a few massive corporations and a handful of wealthy nations. This concentration of power raises serious questions about who gets to decide how this technology is developed and deployed. Will the benefits be shared equitably? Or will they only serve to widen the already cavernous gap between the haves and the have-nots? Will we see a new form of digital colonialism where a few nations control the technological infrastructure of the entire world? This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a logical extension of what we are already seeing today, and the speed at which this is happening leaves little room for democratic oversight or public deliberation. Another ugly facet is the potential for a deeper erosion of privacy. Every time you use a smart device, every time you click on a link, every time you type a query, you are generating data. This data is the lifeblood of AI models. It's what teaches them, what makes them better. But it also means that these models have an ever-growing and frighteningly detailed picture of who you are, your habits, your preferences, your thoughts, your fears. And because these models are being trained on our collective data, the collective you, it becomes a profound privacy issue. How much of our inner lives are we willing to surrender in exchange for convenience? This is a question we are being asked implicitly every single day. As we welcome smart speakers into our homes and allow social media to track our every click, we are willingly feeding a beast that knows us better than we know ourselves. The consequences of this can be seen in everything from hyper-targeted advertising to social credit systems, creating a world where our choices and our opportunities are subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, influenced by algorithms that we can't see, can't question, and can't control. And finally, and this might be the ugliest question of all, is the question of creativity and humanity itself. In a world where AI can generate a painting that is indistinguishable from a human-made one, where it can write a poem that moves you to tears, what is the value of human creation? When a machine can create art, what is the point of the artist? The answer, I believe, is that the value has never been in the product itself, but in the process. The struggle, the triumph, the pain, the joy of creating something. That is the very essence of human experience. The artist, the writer, the musician, their value is not in the artifact they produce, but in the journey of producing it. AI can give us a perfect symphony, but can never give us the human story behind its composition. It can give us a flawless painting, but it can never give us the artist's life, their loves, their struggles, their lived experience, which are all etched into every brushstroke. The very act of creation gives our lives meaning. If we outsource this fundamental aspect of the human condition, what is left for us to do? This isn't about being outcompeted. It's about a potential loss of purpose. It's the ugly existential crisis hiding beneath the glossy surface of progress. And now that we've talked about the real issues, the real good, bad, and ugly things about AI, let's take a moment to debunk some of the fictional fears. The ones that make for great movie plots, but distracts us from the real challenges. The one you hear most often is the specter of a malevolent, sentient AI. This is the stuff of 1,000 science fiction novels and movies. The all-powerful, world-destroying AI that decides humanity is a threat and must be eliminated. You know, like HAL 9000 or Skynet. It's a very compelling narrative. But it is, for the time being, a fictional one. The AI systems we have today are what are called narrow AI. They are excellent at performing a very specific, narrowly defined task, whether that's playing chess or recognizing faces. They don't have consciousness. They don't have wants or desires or a will to power. They are tools. The jump from a narrow AI to a general AI, an AI that can perform any intellectual task a human can, and which might have consciousness and self-awareness, is a monumental leap. A leap we are decades, if not centuries, away from making. Now, to worry about a robot apocalypse today is like worrying about a spaceship landing on Mars when we haven't even figured out how to build a reliable car yet. It's a sensational distraction from the more prosaic, but far more serious problems we face right now. The real dangers are far more mundane and far more likely to come not from AI, but from the humans who use it. The danger is not that AI will decide to eliminate us. The danger is that we will use it to eliminate our jobs without a plan, to perpetuate our biases in our systems, to spread misinformation to fracture our society. The danger is not in the technology, but in the lack of an ethical framework to govern its use and the potential for a catastrophic alignment failure. Now, this is a term used by AI safety researchers. It's not about an AI turning evil. It's about an AI that is so good at fulfilling its assigned goal that it does so in a way that is disastrously misaligned with human values. Imagine an AI tasked with curing cancer. A misaligned AI might decide the most efficient way to do this is to eliminate all humans, thus eliminating cancer entirely. That's a darkly humor, if terrifying, example of an AI that isn't malevolent, but simply and fatally literal. And that brings us to the ethics of AI, a topic that is so vast, so crucial, and so often overlooked in the hype. We are, as a species, incredibly good at creating things, and historically, to be honest, not so great at creating the rules for them. This time, we don't have the luxury of waiting. The ethical vacuum in which AI is currently being developed is one of the most significant challenges we face. So let's talk about some of the most pressing questions. First, there's the question of accountability. If a self-driving car crashes and injures someone, who is at fault? Is it the car's manufacturer? The programmer who wrote the code? The owner of the car? The AI itself? We don't have an answer to this. And this is a serious problem. The legal and ethical frameworks that govern our lives were created in a world where humans were the primary agents of action. We need to create new frameworks, new laws, and new ways of thinking that are fit for the world we are creating. If an AI used to diagnose a disease makes a fatal mistake, how is that different from a human doctor's mistake? And what recourse does the patient have? These are questions with no easy answers, and we are not a moment too soon in addressing them. Then there's the question of fairness. We've already talked about algorithmic bias, but it's worth dwelling on. The data sets used to train these models are not comprehensive. They reflect the biases of the societies that created them. For example, some AI systems have been shown to have difficulty recognizing the faces of people with darker skin tones because the data sets they were trained on were predominantly of people with lighter skin. This isn't a flaw in the technology. It's a flaw in our own historical prejudice. A prejudice that we are now perhaps unwittingly encoding into the very fabric of our technological future. This is a problem that requires a multifaceted solution. from auditing datasets for bias to creating regulatory bodies to ensure that AI is deployed in a way that promotes fairness and equity, not inequality. And there's also the question of transparency, or what is often called the black box problem. Now, many of the most powerful AI models today are so complex, so vast, and even the people who created them don't fully understand how they arrive at a particular decision. The model is so complex that the inner workings are opaque. Now, this is a problem, especially in high-stakes fields like medicine or finance. If an AI recommends a certain treatment or denies a loan application and we can't understand the reasoning, we have a problem of trust. We are placing our faith in a system that we cannot fully comprehend. And that, my friends, is a dangerous road to go down. The push for explainable AI, or XAI, is a critical step in addressing this. The goal is to create AI models that can not only provide an answer, but also provide a clear, human-readable explanation for how they arrived at that answer. So how do we navigate this new terrain? How do we prepare ourselves for a future that is not just different, but fundamentally and profoundly so? The answer, I believe, lies not in trying to stop the tide of progress, but in learning to surf it. It lies in upskilling and reskilling. This is not about fighting the machines, it's about learning to collaborate with them. Upskilling means improving your current skill set. If you're a writer, that might mean learning how to use an AI writing assistant to help you with research or to overcome writer's block. If you're a graphic designer, it might mean learning how to use an AI image generator as a tool for brainstorming and creation, a way to quickly iterate on ideas. It's about leveraging these powerful tools to become better, faster, and more efficient at what you already do. The person who embraces these new tools will have a significant advantage over the person who ignores them. This isn't about simply using a new piece of software. It's about a fundamental shift in mindset, from being a solitary creator to a co-creator, a navigator in a sea of powerful new tools. Reskilling, on the other hand, is about learning new skills entirely. It's for the person whose job is going to be completely automated. The data entry clerk doesn't need to be a better data entry clerk. They need to become something else entirely. Maybe they can use their newfound time to learn data analysis, or a new programming language, or to become a project manager. The key here is to recognize that what AI is good at are skills that are repetitive, codified, and data-driven. What it is not good at least not yet, are skills that are fundamentally and uniquely human. And what are those skills? Well, they are the skills that require emotional intelligence, the ability to build rapport and trust with other human beings. Think of a nurse comforting a patient, a teacher inspiring a student, a therapist helping a person navigate a difficult time. These are the jobs that will be most resilient to automation because they rely on empathy, connection, and understanding. They are the skills that require creative problem solving, the ability to find a novel solution to a new problem that no one has ever faced before. They are the skills that require critical thinking, the ability to analyze a situation, to synthesize information from a variety of disparate sources, and to make a judgment call based not just on data, but on wisdom and lived experience. These are the skills that will not be automated. These are the skills we should be investing in. This is the future of human work. And of course, these are just examples. You can think of things like that in any field. So, where do we go from here? The age of AI is not a destination. It's a journey. A journey that will require us to ask ourselves some of the most fundamental questions about who we are and what we want to become. It is a moment of challenge, to be sure, but it is also a moment of unprecedented opportunity. The opportunity to free ourselves from the tyranny of the mundane, to unleash our creativity, and to finally focus on what truly makes us human. We will only succeed if we approach this new frontier not with fear, but with a sense of wonder, a healthy dose of skepticism, a firm commitment to ethics, and a willingness to learn and adapt. Because in the end, it's not about the machines, it's about us. And with that, my friends, we come to the end of our topic for today's episode. Of course, it's not the end of the episode. We still have our language section. We're going to talk about vocabulary, our speaking challenge, our writing challenge, and some grammar with some discussion questions at the end. But before we move on to the language section, let me remind you that this is the theme for this week. So you will find it everywhere, in the podcast and on our website, as I told you at the beginning of the episode. If you really want to dig deeper and understand more about living in the age of AI, I highly encourage you to check out the magazine articles, the learning quizzes, and of course to listen to the other episodes that I'm still going to publish this week. But with that being said, it's time now to start our language section. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Well, now is the time for the part of the show where we get to flex our linguistic muscles. Because what's the point of having all this information if we don't have the words to talk about it? Now, we're diving into the English section of our English Plus podcast, a space dedicated to giving you the vocabulary, grammar, and speaking skills you need to navigate these conversations with confidence. Now, today we're focusing on the language we just used to unpack the age of AI. Now, it's one thing to listen to a topic, but it's another to be able to talk about it yourself, to articulate your own thoughts and opinions on such a monumental subject. Now let's start with vocabulary and speaking. Now let's start with some of the key words and phrases we tossed around in the episode. The goal here is not just to define them, but to show you how they work, how they feel when you use them, and how you can drop them into your own conversations to sound more natural and sophisticated. I think of these as linguistic tools for your conversational toolkit. Now, first up, we got a phrase that came up right at the beginning, and this one is seismic shift. Now, we used it to describe the change brought about by AI. A seismic shift literally refers to a major earthquake, a ground-shaking event. So when we use it metaphorically, you're talking about a change so massive and so fundamental that it feels like the very foundations of something are being shaken. It's far more impactful than just saying a big change. Now, for example, you could say, the invention of the internet represented a seismic shift in how we access information. Or you can say, her decision to quit her job and travel the world was a seismic shift in her life. Well, this phrase is great for emphasizing the scale and magnitude of a change, whether it's personal or global. It's a phrase that grabs attention and conveys a sense of gravity. Now next, let's talk about a phrase that came up when we discussed the dangers of AI. We talked about unintended consequences. Well, this one is incredibly useful. It describes the negative, often unforeseen results of an action or decision. Now think about it. When we create something, we usually have a goal in mind, an intended outcome. But what happens when things don't go as planned? When a well-intentioned policy leads to a social problem nobody predicted? Those are unintended consequences. For example, we can say, the new traffic light system had the unintended consequence of causing even more congestion. Or, her efforts to save money had the unintended consequence of her missing out on an incredible trip. In the context of AI, we are worried about the consequences of powerful technologies that we don't fully understand yet. Well, my friends, this is a phrase that adds a layer of intellectual honesty to your argument, acknowledging that progress isn't always smooth or predictable. So that's about unintended consequences. Next, we got Pandora's box. Well, this is a beautiful idiom that comes from Greek mythology. Pandora was given a box and told not to open it, but her curiosity got the better of her. And when she did, all the evils of the world flew out. When you say something is a Pandora's box, you mean it's a source of great and unforeseen troubles. It's a powerful way to express a sense of foreboding about a topic, suggesting that once something is started, there's no going back, and the results might be catastrophic. Allowing our children unrestricted access to social media has become a real Pandora's box of problems. Or, the new law on data collection could open a Pandora's box for privacy. It's a dramatic and evocative phrase that elevates your language, so try to use it. Next, let's move on to the phrase entrench existing societal inequalities. Well, this is a more formal, academic-sounding phrase, I know, but it's crucial for talking about systemic problems. To entrench something means to firmly establish it, to dig it in so deeply that it's difficult to remove. When we say an AI can entrench societal inequalities, we mean it can take an existing problem, like racial or gender bias, and make it a permanent, unchangeable part of the system. It's a strong phrase to use when you want to highlight how a new technology isn't just adding to a problem, but is actively making it more difficult to solve. You could say, for example, the lack of funding for public schools continues to entrench existing societal inequalities. Or, without proper oversight, the new policy will entrench biases against certain communities. It's a phrase that shows you're thinking about the deeper structural issues at play. Now let's talk about a great word for our times. This word is ubiquitous. Now we use this word to describe how AI is everywhere. Now, ubiquitous simply means present everywhere at the same time. Now think of it as a more advanced way to saying everywhere. Now, for example, you can say smartphones have become ubiquitous in modern society. Or you can say coffee shops are ubiquitous in this neighborhood. Well, my friends, ubiquitous is a word that conveys a sense of pervasiveness and normalcy. And next, let's talk about one of my favorite words, prosaic. Now, this word means ordinary, commonplace, or lacking in excitement. Now, we use it to describe the real dangers of AI compared to the fantastical ones. Prosaic is a fantastic word to use to create a contrast between something that is exciting or glamorous and something that is, well, not. For example, we can say, his life, though full of adventure in his youth, had become quite prosaic in his old age. Well, my friends, prosaic is the perfect word to use when you want to bring a discussion back down to earth and focus on the less exciting but more important details. And now let's talk about foundational. Now, we talked about the very foundation of our shared reality being at risk. Now, the word foundational, which is the adjective obviously, means serving as a foundation or basis for something. It's a powerful adjective that highlights the core or fundamental nature of an idea or concept. For example, we can say, trust is foundational to any healthy relationship. Or, critical thinking is a foundational skill for success in the modern world. It gives weight to the noun that follows it. But that's not everything. I still have a couple more. When we talked about the black box problem, I said the inner workings of some AI models are opaque. Well, this word means not able to be seen through or difficult to understand. It's a great metaphor for the lack of transparency in AI. For example, his explanation of the process was so opaque that no one in the room understood it. It's a more eloquent way to say something is unclear. Now, you can still say unclear, obviously, but this is more eloquent. If you want to be more eloquent or you find yourself in a place with the need to be more eloquent. Opaque. O-P-A-Q-U-E. Opaque. All right? And finally, to be mired in something. Now, we use this phrase to describe how people can get stuck in a sense of foreboding about AI. Now, to be mired in something means to be stuck or entangled in it, now, usually in a negative way, like being stuck in mud. Now, you can be mired in a problem, in an argument, or even in a negative emotion. For example, we can say, the company was mired in a financial scandal, or he was mired in self-doubt after losing his job. It's a vivid image that suggests being trapped. All right, these are the words that I wanted to share with you, and that's a good set of 10 words and phrases to work with. Now for the speaking part, for the speaking challenge of our lesson. Our goal is to take these new words and concepts and put them into practice. Speaking isn't just about vocabulary, it's about fluency, connecting ideas, and expressing yourself with confidence. So here's what you're going to do. We just talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI, right? I want you to choose just one of these categories, the good, the bad, or the ugly, and prepare a short 2-minute monologue. It's not a speech, it's just a quick, focused burst of thought. Now, here are the rules for your little speaking assignment. First, choose your category, the good, the bad, or the ugly. Then, use at least 3 of the vocabulary words we just discussed. Third, practice speaking your thoughts out loud. Don't write it down word for word first. Just use some bullet points as a guide if you need it. The goal is to improve your spontaneous speech, to get comfortable using these words without a script. And finally, record yourself. I know, it's awkward, but this is the single best way to improve your speaking. Listen back to your recording and pay attention to your pronunciation, your flow, and how you sound. Do you sound confident? Do you pause in the right places? Well, don't underestimate your ability to judge yourself. You're a great judge when it comes to these exercises, and you can easily tell when you make progress. When you see this progress, you'll be very happy, by the way. So just try it. Now, let's get back to the challenge. For example, if you chose the bad, you might start by saying, I believe the real challenge of AI isn't the fictional threats, but the more prosaic yet serious dangers, particularly the potential for it to entrench existing societal inequalities. We have to be careful that our good intentions don't have the unintended consequence of making things worse for marginalized communities. See how the words flow together naturally? Of course, you don't have to use these words. You can use any words. You can talk about the good. You can talk about the ugly. It's up to you. This is your challenge. It's a way to move these words from your passive vocabulary into your active speaking lexicon. So give it a shot, my friends. Find a quiet place, turn on your phone's voice recorder, and start recording. You'll be amazed at how much you improve with just a little bit of practice. And now it's time for our grammar and writing section. That's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. All right, now let's transition from speaking to writing, a different but equally important skill. If speaking is about spontaneity, writing is about precision and structure. Well, we're going to use the age of AI as our canvas for our writing challenge for this week. This is a chance for you to take all the ideas we've discussed and put them together into a coherent, compelling piece of writing. Your writing challenge is to compose a persuasive essay, no more than 500 words, arguing for or against the regulation of AI development. My prompt to you is, should the development of artificial intelligence be strictly regulated to mitigate its potential risks? Or would such regulation stifle innovation and hinder progress? Argue your position with specific points and examples. Now, this is not an easy challenge, I have to admit, and that's the point. It requires you to take a clear stance and support it with evidence, which is the cornerstone of good writing. To help you tackle this, I'm going to talk about a few key grammatical structures and writing techniques that can help you with this writing challenge. First, let's talk about compound and complex sentences. Now, to write a persuasive essay, you need to be able to connect ideas in a sophisticated way. A simple sentence is just one dependent clause, like AI is a powerful tool. That's a simple sentence. A compound sentence connects two independent clauses, often with a coordinating conjunction like and, but, or so. For example, AI is a powerful tool, comma, but it also presents a significant risk. This is one sentence, but it combines two simple sentences together using but in this case, so it is a compound sentence. Now, a complex sentence combines an independent clause with one or more independent clauses which cannot stand on their own. For example, because AI has the potential to entrench societal inequalities, its development should be strictly regulated. Now here's the trick. Use these sentence structures to show relationships between your ideas. Use a complex sentence with because to show cause and effect. Use a compound sentence with but to show contrast. Now, this makes your writing flow better and demonstrates a deeper understanding of the relationships between your points. Instead of writing AI is risky, it should be regulated, you write something like, the risks inherent in AI, from algorithmic bias to the erosion of privacy, are so profound that regulation is not just a good idea, but a foundational necessity. I know this is a lot more complicated, but this is much more persuasive. Next, let's focus on the use of transitional phrases. Now, these are the signposts that guide your reader from one idea into the next. Words like furthermore, in contrast, consequently, on the one hand and on the other hand. In your essay, you'll need to move smoothly from one argument to the next. If you are arguing for regulation, you might say something like, on the one hand, a lack of regulation could lead to a Pandora's box of unintended consequences. Furthermore, it could allow a few corporations to consolidate power, leading to a new form of digital inequality. Now, these phrases act as linguistic bridges, making your argument clear and cohesive. But that's not everything about grammar that can help you with your writing challenge. I still have more. Now, let's talk about parallel structure. Well, this is a grammatical concept where you use the same pattern of words to show that two or more ideas have the same level of importance. It's a simple technique that adds a great deal of elegance and rhythm to your writing. For example, instead of writing, regulation would protect the public and it would also ensure fairness, you could write, regulation would serve to protect the public, comma, ensure fairness, comma, and promote ethical development. The parallel structure with protect, ensure, and promote makes the sentence stronger and more memorable. And finally, let's talk about active versus passive voice. In persuasive writing, active voice is almost always better. In an active sentence, the subject performs the action. The government should regulate AI. The subject is the government, and the action is should regulate. In a passive sentence, the subject receives the action. AI should be regulated by the government. The second sentence is grammatically correct, but it's less direct and less powerful. For your essay, focus on using active voice to make your points with force and clarity. I'm not saying passive voice is wrong, no, not at all, but active voice in persuasive writing is much stronger. So, my friends, your assignment is to write a persuasive essay on the regulation of AI. Use compound and complex sentences to connect your ideas. Use transitional phrases to guide your reader through your argument. Use parallel structure for impact and use active voice to make your points forceful. Don't be afraid to use some of the vocabulary we just learned. It's your chance to put all of these tools together into a powerful piece of writing. And remember, this exercise isn't just about grammar and vocabulary. It's about learning to think critically and express those thoughts with precision. It's about taking the messiness of a complex topic and giving it form, structure, and a clear voice. And you know that you can send me your writing pieces on my Patreon page, where I can take a look at them and let you know what I think. But that's not the end of our episode. We still have our discussion section that's coming next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. All right, my friends, that brings us to the end of our main conversation on this momentous topic. But the conversation shouldn't stop here. The best way to truly grasp a subject this complex and nuanced is to engage with it, to hear other perspectives, and to share your own. That's why I created this special Let's Discuss section. And you can discuss these questions with your friends, with your family, with anyone who's interested. Sometimes even think about them yourselves. I know it's not perfect, but it's something you can do. And talking about AI, you can discuss them with AI, just for the sake of practice if you want, all right? That's one of the good things about AI. You can practice your English with AI, you can even talk about ideas and discuss ideas, but just don't accept all the ideas it tells you blindly. Always be a critical thinker, all right? But anyway, let me start with my first discussion question. Now, thinking about the concept of upskilling and reskilling, what is one skill that you believe is fundamentally human and therefore cannot be automated by AI? Think of skills that require genuine empathy and emotional intelligence like counseling or nursing. Consider jobs that demand high-level strategic thinking or novel creative solutions to problems, such as a CEO or a research scientist. What about skills that require physical dexterity and unpredictable problem-solving like a master craftsman or a plumber? I would like to hear what you think will remain uniquely in the human domain. And now to my next question. In our discussion about the black box problem and algorithmic bias, can you think of a specific example in your daily life where you suspect an algorithm might be influencing your choices or showing a bias? This could be anything from your social media feed to the recommendations on a streaming service or the search results you see. How do you think this influences your worldview or the kind of information you consume? And what steps, if any, do you take to combat this? And now to the next question. Now, we talked about the ugly side of AI, specifically the consolidation of power in a few companies. Do you believe this is an inevitable consequence of technological progress? Or do you think there are practical ways to ensure AI benefits society more broadly? Consider alternative models for AI development, such as open source initiatives or government-funded research. What role do you think international collaboration and treaties might play in preventing a digital divide between nations? And how can we ensure that the developing world has a seat at the table in this conversation? And now my next question. Imagine a world 20 years from now. What is one positive and one negative outcome of AI that you think is most likely to have a major impact on your personal life? Now, for a positive outcome, maybe think about how AI might improve your health, make your work more efficient, or enhance your creative pursuits. For a negative outcome, consider how it might impact your job, your privacy, or the way you interact with others. What do you think is a realistic scenario, and what's a more far-fetched one? My final question is, if you had the power to create one new ethical rule or law for the development and use of AI, what would it be and why? Well, this could be a rule about data privacy, transparency, or accountability. Consider a rule that protects creative works from being used to train AI models without consent. What would be the most important single principle to guide this new age of technology? Now join the conversation, my friends, on the website, on my Patreon page, share your thoughts, and let's learn from each other. This is a topic that requires all of us to be involved, to be thinking, and to be discussing. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode, our flagship episode for this week, because it's the essence of our theme for this week, living in the age of AI. Now, we've covered a lot of ground, I guess, from the promise of AI in medicine to the more insidious problems of bias and power consolidation, and we even got to play with some new vocabulary and grammar, right? I hope this episode has given you not just a better understanding of the age of AI, but also the confidence and the tools to talk about it with your friends, your family, and your colleagues. Now, if you enjoyed this episode and you're ready to take your English to the next level, I invite you to become a part of the English Plus ecosystem. You can find our rich and ever-expanding content on our website, englishpluspodcast.com, where you will find articles, in-depth studies, and so much more. And of course, if you want to unlock full access to our entire library of episodes, including the exclusive content we create just for our subscribers, you can subscribe to English Plus Premium on Apple Podcasts or on Patreon. And for those of you who want to go even deeper and support my creative work, including my music and writing, you can access to this tier on Patreon. It's the perfect way to get access to everything I create and to support my endeavors to create even more in the future for you and for everybody else. Well, my friends, thank you very much for listening. Keep learning, keep asking the right questions, and most importantly, never stop being curious and never stop learning with English Plus Podcast. I'll see you next time.